and a warm welcome from my side. Welcome to the webinar Automotive Control Concepts. My name is Philipp Weissel. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Plastic Electronic. Why do we organize a webinar like this with the content of automotive control concepts? I have to say that we are not the experts per se when it comes to this topic, but we are a technology company. Plastic Electronic is a technology company that is in the business of integrated control panels, not only for the automotive interior, but also for white goods, home appliances, for home automation, and so on and so on. So we have a certain experience about control concepts in general, and we have also some experience with automotive control concepts. And what I will present today is more or less this kind of experience and what we learned from our business and our customers and our partners, and what we learned about, for example, the criteria and the concepts out there, and about what is good and what is maybe not so good in different concepts. So let me make a brief overview of the content. First of all, we want to talk, or I want to talk about relevant criteria for an automotive control concept. There are especially some design requirements and some control requirements that I would like to highlight. In the next step, I would like to introduce or to describe briefly three control concepts: a touchscreen control concept, traditional, and a touchscreen control concept, and finally make a comparison of these three concepts regarding the relevant criteria which I outlined in the first part of the webinar. And then I would like to make a short outlook about what could be next, what could come next, and what could be, let's say, a kind of ideal control concept for the car. Let's start with the design requirements. I think first of all we see and we feel that there is a need to have certain intuitive interaction areas in the car. This might be in the center console, this might be in the control panel, in the trim area of the doors, wherever. So there should be some intuitive interaction areas, and these interaction areas has to be seamlessly integrated into the automotive interior surface. These areas are mostly 3D formed or curved, and so also this is an important requirement to really be able to equip 3D formed and curved surfaces with controls with intuitive interaction areas. And I think also very important aspect is this shy-tech aspect. Means that the technology should not be dominant, that the shy-tech is the shy-tech concept is kind of making technology shy, stepping back. In the, let's say, in the foreground you have the driver, the user, and the technology serves only the user. This means, for example, just to give an example, when I sit into my car, I do not want to see all the control options that I have. First of all, maybe I just want to start the engine. So if I could have a control concept where I just have the option to choose to start the engine, yes or no, or to do some other in this phase relevant control actions, then only this could, for example, light up. So you can have a black panel effect where you just see the options in a black panel which you really want to choose at the moment, and not all of the options at the same time. Coming to the control requirements, I think the most important and mainly discussed requirement is view, or the distraction of the drivers should be as little as possible. I think this is pretty obvious. Also, we as a driver do not want to be too much focused on the control of the car, but we should stay focused on the street and on the traffic, and not be too much occupied by the controlling of some standard functions in the car. Also, I think controls should be somehow intuitive. No one does want to have complicated and hard to learn control procedures, but I think intuitive controls or control situations are also an important requirement. Of course, finger guidance through surface topography is an important requirement. That means that you usually, if you're driving in a car, you would like to look at the street and the traffic situation, and therefore there is a need for a finger guidance that you can, without looking at the fingers, clearly touch where you want to, where the control areas are, where you can interact with it. And I think this is also a major impact for the driver focus. And finally, what you also need is fast and reliable activation of the controls. So if you try to activate the control, the activation should be immediate after I want to activate it, and it should be reliable. So if I do an action and it does not show the activation of the control, then I think this is something which again distracts the driver, and let's say the driver loses the focus of street and traffic and goes to the focus of operating the car, which is not very good. And after activation of the control, I think a certain feedback, or we hear that a certain feedback is required. So this, let's say, package of fast, reliable, and feedback is something which seems to be a very important requirement for automotive control concepts as well. Next, I would like to introduce 3 different control concepts. Let's start with something which is coming more and more in the car, which is a touch screen control concept. I will show a small video about the interaction with the touch screen control panel, and I will comment on this later on. So as we could see on this small video, I think it is not so easy to make operations with a touch screen in a driving car. Now one could say, okay, this is not meant to be done during driving, but we all know that it is not realistic that you say, okay, you make some control operations only during standing or only during driving. You will always have the situation that also a touch screen control situation will come up during driving. And yeah, I think we had a good impression about how this could be with a touch screen and how the, let's say, situation is here. I think it was a kind of very hard interaction with the car, and I think that some of the criteria I outlined at the very beginning were maybe not ideally matched in this case. Let me introduce, or let me highlight another control concept, which is a traditional control concept, I think a very good and a very let's say successful concept for automotive control, which is the BMW iDrive. Let's maybe shortly watch this video. So together with this iDrive, the central wheel, which is not only in the BMW, but you can find it in also some other cars, especially German cars. You have a combination with the touchpad, a small touchpad at this wheel, this central wheel, and you can also write characters onto this touchpad, and this will be recognized by the HMI, which is, I think, something which works already pretty good and is definitely a very good and very mature control concept for cars. Let's take a look at the third option, which is touchscreen, something what a control concept that our company or my company Plastic Electronic is doing. And again, for introduction, a short video. So in this video, you see, let's say from a principal standpoint, situation and a control situation which is comparable with a traditional control situation, like an iDrive or central wheel situation, but it shows capacitive touch controls seamlessly integrated into the surface, the interior surface of a car. This was a showcase which was done with a couple of partners working together to build up this showcase. It was shown at the Fakuma trade fair in 2011, where you really had a production directly at the trade fair and the cockpit where the control consoles were mounted directly, and you could interact with your HMI. So a control concept which is also comparable with the traditional concept, but which is more or which is finally where you have a touch interaction rather than interaction over electromechanical switches. A short comparison, or one kind of comparison. There is another video which I would like to show. Maybe let's take a look at the video. Yeah, what you see here is a kind of comparison which gives one, I think, also very relevant aspect to the topic. If you want to make a good, reliable, and safe control action, you need a certain support for your arm or your acting hand, which is given. Which is not given, definitively not given in the first touch screen control concept that I showed, but which is pretty good given with the concept, the traditional and the touch screen concept, where you really have the armrest that gives a certain support to the interacting hand, and seems to be or seems to have some benefit over the touch screen control concept. The next slide, we will have a certain comparison, which is a personal and not totally objective view, of course, of the three control concepts regarding the criteria which I mentioned before in the first part of the webinar. I think to give a let's say bigger picture, I think the strength of the touch screen is more really to have Shy-Tech or let's say black panel effects. In this case would mean that you really could have only the options that you actually want to interact or you want to have at the moment. This is something which you really can have with a touch screen, which is definitively not possible with a traditional concept, which is also possible, for example, with a touch screen concept. Excuse me. Of course, the traditional and very mature concept has a lot of benefits. I think the major issues here are the design issue from the standpoint of the seamless integration, which is not possible. So you will have always very, let's say, complex or at least complex looking, for example, center console, because you will have high number of control switches, wheels, whatever. This is not what we see as a seamless integration, I would say. Also, this shy-tech black panel effect, is not possible. And the touchscreen concept at the other hand can do all these things, but there you have to care about the fast and reliable activation of touch controls, which is not always a fact. And of course, on the other hand, the feedback situation. So feedback is something which can go through light, which can go through action. But for example, I personally haven't seen up to now a good haptic feedback concept for touch controls, and I think this is still something which has to be solved. Let's come to a possible outlook. So the outlook of automotive control concepts could be, or the future could be, a combination of different control concepts. And I show this with a picture on the right side of this Windows Surface. Windows Surface already gives the opportunity to combine a touch screen together with a traditional keypad, together with a touch control of the mouse. A touchpad is a control for the mouse, but also the keys are in some variants of the Windows Surface capacitive keys. So this already shows in which direction maybe the development will go. So, for example, in an automotive interior, have touch controls for seamless integration, and shy-tech, for example, also at the border areas of the door panel, overhead panels, trims, and so on, to have some electromechanical controls for especially reliable activation and feedback is mandatory and needed, and to have touch screens for what I would call shortcut activation. What I mean with this is, for example, if you see an option already on the screen of your HMI, it's sometimes a little bit boring to make to position the wheel in this way that you can really activate this option. So when I have it already on the screen, I would like to touch it in order to activate that. This could be also something which is to be taken in account, that if I have already a screen, this screen should at least be a touch screen, but finally the controlling of the HMI should not only be touch screen control, but it should also be with electromechanical and touch controls. Of course, there are some other control concepts out there and starting at the moment, where we have, let's say, more or less still R&D activities, so not per se already products on the market, but rear projection plus infrared touch is something which is developed with or by several very interesting partners, I guess, and this is something which could come up in the next time. Rear projection means that you have a kind of 3D surface with a projected picture or screen. From the projection comes from the rear side, and you have, for example, infrared touch, which is also a 3D touch then finally, and you could really have a 3D curved and structured surface, which is a complete touch screen, let's say, and which would, for example, combine maybe some of the benefits of a touch screen with the touch screen solution as we have it at the moment. So something we should take care of and we should take a look at. Yes, so now I would say it's up to you to ask some questions, to make some remarks. As I said before, for us it's mainly important to have a dialogue on this topic, to discuss with you or with the experts about automotive control concepts, and I'm looking forward to learn more about your views and about your questions or to discuss with you.
Thank you very much, Philipp Weissel, for the presentation. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, if you have input or feedback, please type it in the message box and I will read out the questions to Philipp Weissel, who will answer them. The first question that was asked is, can you please describe your business model? How one can use your technology? Please, Philipp Weissel.
Yes, of course. Thank you for this question. So we as a Plastic Electronic, we are a technology company. So what we are doing is developing the technology for integrated control panels, as you have seen in the sensitive surface video. We do this in a close collaboration with our customers. The customers gives usually the requirement, and we develop together with our team and also together with some external partners the concept, make a demonstrator, functional demonstrator, make the prototype, and then finally lead to serial production. But we are not producing. We are not a producing company. We are taking care of production, but the production itself is done by partners, by dedicated partners, like the ones which were already mentioned before, as for example foil converters, as electronics companies, like injection molding companies, and so on and so on. At the end of the day, we are the ones who is taking care of the whole concept. We see ourselves as a one-stop shop for this kind of control panels. So if you have any questions, specific questions regarding this and regarding also integrated control console, I would be happy to go further with you in detailed discussion.
Another question is there any kind of prototype that one can try out?
It's not easy to answer that because there are prototypes, but they are not available for everyone, of course. So if we are doing prototyping, then this is something we do for customers, and we are not allowed to show the results of the prototypes. And this is the reason why we did, together with other companies, this sensitive surface showcase, because this is something where we were able to show the integrated control concept in this sensitive surface showcase. So unfortunately, it's like this, that this for the automotive application, this is still the only one I'm allowed to show. There will be one trim part, I guess in Q1 of the next year, which could be available and which shows also some very nice integration of control functions into a trim part. There are some demonstrators out there which are non-automotive, but also here the same situation. The newest technology is unfortunately not available for, let's say, parts which we are allowed to show, but we are also working to show every 2 years, for example, new demonstrators, which are our own demonstrators and where you can see and touch and feel the functionality then at the end.
Okay. Now the next question, do you have any views on how this technology could compete with voice-activated switching?
I think this is a very good question because this is something which I did not mention, and I think this is something which has to be taken in account, that maybe touching is something which is not the only way to interact with the car. It seems to be very clear that, let's say, the voice control is something which is getting more and more mature. There are still some very bad solutions out there where people are, or the users are maybe not satisfied, but it's getting better and better. So again, as I outlined already in my presentation, I think at the end we will see a lot of different combinations for different control situations. But also all of these technologies will somehow sum up to a very user-friendly control concept, and there voice control is definitively something which will also gain market shares and will be more and more implemented into control concepts in cars. So I think at the end we will see a kind of combination also between, let's say, touching the control and a voice activation of the control.
Thank you very much. Before I read out the next question, I would like to inform you, as already mentioned before, that I will send out the link to see the full webinar as well as the presentation in the next few days to all participants. Now let's come to the next remark. What about design freedom and surface design?
Yeah, I think this is the biggest benefit of our touchscreen concept. So I think this was a very friendly either customer or friend of the company, partner, whoever who asked this question, because this is definitively, I think, the strength of the touchscreen concept, that you can really have a certain design freedom in terms of shape, but also in terms of look and feel. And you have not too much limitations here. So everything what you can imagine in the automotive interior, you could also apply a touch control to it or behind it. And I think this gives a lot of good opportunities also for this technology, especially maybe in some parts where you do not even think about that you could integrate a control there. Like, for example, let's say border areas in the door, in the seat, in some panels on the ceiling, and so on and so on. So I think there is a lot of design freedom comes together with the touchscreen control concept.
Okay. Now, where do you see benefits compared to other printed electronics concept? For example, poly-IC is another question that was just typed in the online chat.
Oh, I like it very much that we are so much in detail already. The touchscreen concept is quite different from the poly-IC concept. The poly-IC concept gives you the opportunity to have kind of touch skin integrated. So you have really a full transparent touch area, which cannot be 3D formed as far as I know at the moment. So this might be also something which has to be taken in account. The touchscreen concept is completely different, because this is more something which replaces a traditional concept with different electromechanical controls with touch controls. So the electromechanical controls are somehow replaced by touch controls. This could be interaction areas like we have seen in the sensitive surface, but also other type of or other kind of control situations. I think also a major difference between our concept and other printed electronics concept is that we already have parts in hand where we not only integrate capacitive touch functionality, but also lighting, backlighting functionality, as well as, for example, light guide and things like that. So the touchscreen concept is in the meanwhile at a stage where we do not only integrate touch controls, but also lighting, backlighting in injection molded parts. And this is also, I think, a big difference to other printed electronic solution which we see on the market actually.
Let me read out the next question. Do you have finished commercialized products?
This is a good question as well. We have finished commercialized products, but not on the market yet. So they are still in a prototype or C-sample phase, let's say, and they are not in automotive. So in automotive, we are still in an early phase. We are still in a B-sample phase, let's say, not even C-samples, I would say. This is due to several reasons. One reason is, of course, that the control concept is not so straightforward and that there are doubts out there if this is the right control concept. This is the one side. The other side goes together with the technology. This is a new technology. This is something which has to be tested, which has to be validated, and this is kind of a long way to go. But nevertheless, in other industries like especially white goods, and there especially smaller white goods like coffee machines.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your questions. I will just wait a couple of moments to see if other questions arrive. And in the meantime, I would like to remind you that if any questions or input or feedback occurs after the webinar is finished, don't hesitate to contact us. contact@plasticelectronic.com. And we also have a company page on LinkedIn. You can follow us to always see what's new at Plastic Electronic. As of right now, I see there are no more remarks. So I would like to thank you for attending this webinar. I hope you enjoyed it. And I wish you a good day. Thank you.